Hey guys, welcome back to another art doll video. So this one is quite a big doll. It's going to be a little process on how I made my Wendigo art doll. So it's quite big. Little turnaround of what it looks like. The butt. I went for sort of different sort of colours for this one. I went for like realistic leopard sort of ocelot looking fur for this one, and then black up the top, and just like a fluffy sort of mane. So yeah, a little bit different from any sort of resource pictures that I saw online. Just a little design from my own intuition, I guess. So we've got polymer clay head. It's slightly movable, slightly posable, has a little joint here and that makes it posable. The antlers aren't made by me, they're plastic that I've added to the head. Hands are Cos clay, feet are polymer clay with Cos clay nails, just so they're a little bit more durable, because they're quite thin. And ball and socket armature inside, so he does stand on 2 legs. You can also pose him on 4 legs as well. You just have to sort of play around with just the posing and the balance when you're posing with two-legged things. But yeah, this guy is available in my shop, creaturesinnet.com. Payment plans are welcome as well, so just shoot me a message and I can tell you how they work. I try to be super flexible with things like this, but it's not really a doll that I normally make, so I'll probably do something like this, not every Halloween, I don't know. It's just I felt like making some of these for Halloween, or this one for Halloween. So it's kind of a bit of a rarity on things that I've made before. Definitely sticking to making more realistic dolls rather than fantasy dolls anymore. So yeah, this one's sort of like a definite rarer piece of mine. But yeah, so let me know what you think. Watch to the end, and you can see how I made him. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff as well. It really helps my channel grow, and see you at the end of the video. Okay, so I'm starting off by an aluminium core, and this is just a little foil ball that I sort of scrunched up into the rough shape of what I wanted. And I'm using Sculpting Original for this one, so it's a nice soft one and it's the white color. I'm just covering the ball with a layer of the polymer clay to begin with, and then I can start sculpting it. So this piece I'm doing in 2 parts. I'm doing the upper head piece is a larger solid piece, and then I'm doing a lower jaw piece. Because it is a skeleton, I need to do it in this way, and I had planned to make these pieces movable as well. So I basically just rough out a really rough shape of the skull. I have reference images up on my computer next to me, so I can just always look over and make sure I'm doing the correct sculpting. So I am starting to sculpt around the nose area, or what would be the nose area, and it's sort of a little bit, I guess, jagged, and hollow in the middle. So what I'm going to do is bring out that front bit a little bit more, and then sort of carve out a little bit of a well into that middle of the nose area. And I'm going to be using some plastic horns or antlers for this one. So they're not made by me, but they're nice and sturdy. So I usually go for the plastic antlers. So it's really thin area and I don't want it to break. So it gives some durability to it. So I'm just mapping in where I want those horns to attach to the head by blending in these little blocks on top of the head. And then I can sort of map out where I want the pegs to go in. And I'm not going to bake the horns directly into the sculpting because they are plastic and chances are they'll probably melt in the oven and let off some weird chemical thing. So I just basically create the hole for it and then I'll attach it later with some epoxy sculpt. For the eyes, I'm just using my little Stanley knife thing nub to cut out some eye shapes and just hollow out that little well bit, and then I can just refine it a bit more. And then I can start adding the detailing of the teeth. So I've basically rolled out a snake piece and I am just shaping it into a rough shape. So the other piece was a bit too long, so I cut it off at that bit and I'm going to use it on the other side, just blending it into the bottom of the head, and then I can start adding some little detailing with my needle tools and also my silicone tools. And sometimes I'll do a tooth at a time and put it onto the sculpture, but this piece I decided to do it in all in a row and sort of carve out the shapes for this one. So around the nose area, I'm going to cut out 2 little slits just sort of in the middle. It makes the clay a little bit more fragile, but you know, you got to be true to the sculpt. And then I'm just going over with my tool, just refining a few more areas and just sort of building up the areas as well. I'm going to be adding little fracture lines and little indentations like this area. I'm guessing it's where the smell sort of comes together. And yeah, just blending it out with my silicone tool to make it nice and smooth as well, so it's not too jagged. And I'm using another silicone tool to create those sort of little fracture lines in the skulls that you can see. So it's a nice little bit of detail and yeah, just using a sort of a square shape and dragging it down. Okay, so moving on to the lower part of the jaw, I have pre-baked the top of the head, so I can sculpt on top of that and make sure it lines up correctly. So I gave that a nice little bake in the oven. I don't have to do that again. and then building on that lower jaw. So I'm just doing a really rough shape of the lower jaw, and then I'm going to refine it a bit more it's too thick at the moment, so I need to subtract some of that polymer clay to create the bone-like structures. But I'm just lining it up to where the teeth are going to sit and making sure that it is going to be nice and symmetrical. And then I'm creating the little mandible piece things where your jaw rolls and the socket is. So that's gonna sort of sit across the top of the head, and then it has like a little bone piece that goes over the top of it. So it's a little bit of a fragile sort of sculpt when it comes to this little bone structure here, because everything's quite thin and small. So yeah, that's why I baked it in 2 different parts. And added a bit more detailing to the bottom of the jaw and just carving out that little mandible stick, because it's too thick at the moment and it needs to sit flush with the top of the body. Then I'm going to be adding the teeth, same deal as when I added to the top of the teeth. So just doing a smaller strip this time, and then adding those little detailings with my tools and silicone tool. Then I'm going to be adding some little teeth to the tip of the lower jaw, and they're going to come up and sit flush against that top of the jaw. Now for the lower jaw, it has a gap in the middle, so I need to carve out that space with some of my tools. And of course, this makes the piece quite fragile, so I need to sort of end up baking it twice, the top piece twice, with the lower jaw resting on top. So I'll put it upside down and put the lower jaw on top, just so it bakes to the contour of the top of the head. And once it's done, I can start working on sculpting the hands. So the hands are a large piece for this one. They're large and thin. So there's a lot of work that went into this one. I'm using some grey Cos clay for this. I'm not really a big fan of using Cos clay, but it is pretty handy when you have thin pieces. It's not so fragile like Sculpey and other polymer clays are. So I've just done a really rough armature out of some wire and also some foil. Just covered it just to give it a bit of space and something for the clay to sit on. Then I can go ahead and just layer the hand with some clay to begin with, and then I can start adding some more little details. So for the fingers, I basically just roll out a piece of clay and pinch it together, and that way it covers the entirety of the hand. And this is quite thin, so I've rolled out thin pieces because I want the fingers to be sort of lanky. So I've rolled out thin pieces of clay to achieve that little lankiness. And again, just going in and adding some detailing with my my tools, my silicone tools, and adding some knuckles. And I'll be doing some nails as well. Some fingernails are going to be long and sharp for this one. I think it'll look good. So yeah, cosplay, just I find it takes a long time for me to sculpt. Maybe not for other people, but I personally like working with really soft things. I do have the softest clay, but it's a bit more plasticky. Which is why I think it's more bendable. They've got more plastic things in there, I think, I'm assuming. And it's not as smooth, it's a bit tacky, I guess. So, yeah, it's not my favorite medium, but I like the functionality of it. Okay, for the nails, I'm just doing a sort of flattening it out, and then I'm going to carve in some little nail sort of beds underneath. And this is going to be, yeah, for the both fingers, and I'm going to do long nails for the toes as well, but the feet I'm going to sculpt out of polymer clay Sculpting Original, and then I'm going to do the nails in this as well. So the nail process is pretty much the same, which is a bit longer. So I'm just putting the nails over the top, and then I will blend them in and create a nail bed. And like I said, I'm just going over and making the feet out of polymer clay because I want them to be a bit more sturdy, and I want to sort of sculpt them a bit faster. And then I'm going to add the clay nails to the end of them just so they don't snap when there's like a little bit of pressure on them. But with all polymer clays, you know, it is a clay, so they're not a super solid steady piece. If you want something super solid, then I'd recommend using something like epoxy sculpt that dries rock hard. So I basically just create the toe pieces by rolling out snake ones and creating like a little knuckle, and then adding some more detailing to, I guess, the bone structure, and adding a little space for the ball and socket armature to fit into. Okay, for the armature, I'm using a ball and socket armature. I did a combination of the larger size, which I think is a 1/8, and the medium size, which is a 1/4. So I did a little bit of combination of them, and then I and I'm going to be needle felting the body. So what I do is wrap some pipe cleaners around the armature itself, and then start wrapping that polyfill around and just needle felting a pretty rough layer to begin with. I just want to get a base polymer, a base layer over that armature, and then I can start adding some like muscle tone and stuff and building up on the structure of it. But this doll was going to be a thin doll anyway, so I didn't need to go too overboard with the polyfill. So the felting process was quite fast for this one anyway. And I did a little experiment with doing a rib cage, but I didn't really like the way it was turning out, so I didn't end up using it. Maybe if I do one next year, I'll do a different sort of process for the rib cage, but I didn't really like the way it was looking, so I didn't end up using it. Just made it look a bit bulky and not really what I intended to make. So maybe next year I'll do something and see what happens, but for this one I ended up just binning it. A little bit of waste of materials, but yeah, just not what I wanted out of this doll. Okay, so the faux fur that I'm using for this one's a little bit different. So I'm using this like fake ocelot type fur. I had a little bit left and it was like just enough for the legs. So I did like half up to the knee, from like the hips to the knee, in this ocelot fur. And then what I'm doing is a brown Mongolian faux fur for the legs, and I wanted it to be a bit shaggier. I did have the intention to trim it, but I liked the way it looked once I put it all together, so I just ended up leaving it. So basically what I'm doing is just cutting the pieces to conform around that polyfill that I needle felted. So I had just enough fur that got me around. And then the rest of the faux fur is going to be black. And I'm using a ladder stitch to sew all of these pieces up, so and a good quality thread. It just hides the seams nicely, and so you need a good quality thread to pull some tension on it, otherwise you find that it snaps quite a lot. Okay, so for the torso piece, I'm using a similar sized pile, but in black. This fur is really, really soft, so it's really nice fur to actually hold and touch and feel and pat. So again, I'm just using a ladder stitch to sew this torso piece up, and then I can start doing the limbs. The top of the arms, I should say, are going to be the same fabric, so I'm going to blend that in as well, and it's going to look nice and seamless. But before that, I'm going to just quickly paint the hands in a black colour. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with the hands just yet, so I was sort of winging the design from here. And yeah, I thought it would look better if they were painted black. I was thinking about leaving them grey, but I just don't think that really matched. So I decided to give the hands a quick coat of black paint, and then I can move on to the leg pieces, which is that Mongolian faux fur that you can see. So I really liked the shaggy look and ended up not trimming them, but it blends really nicely into that fake ocelot fur, I think. So I just left it. And then with the arms, I can go in, pin the pieces together, and sew everything up using that ladder stitch. So for the neck area, I ended up using this piece of really long piled. It's actually a fur that's like an ombre grey to black. So there's a little bit of greying in there, and but mostly it's black because I used the darker end. So I'm going to go over and sew this together just for a little bit of character and sort of a mane around the neck area. So I sewed that up with a ladder stitch and attached it to the head using some tacky fabric glue. Yeah, I think that this mane really brought the character to life. And yeah, I'll probably do that. I'm currently making a Krampus doll, so I'll probably do something similar with the Krampus to this design, but I think I'm just going to do it all black. But yeah, I kind of like the way the mane, like the shaggy mane makes it look. So I'm going in and just giving the antlers a coat of paint. Ideally, I should have done this before I done any of the sewing here. But just gave it a quick coat of white and then a little bit of a sort of a sandy coloured wash over the top of it. And then gluing that little mane bit onto the head using that tacky fabric glue that I mentioned before. And that's pretty much it for this doll. It is up for grabs in my shop, so check that out, creaturesnat.com. I do offer payment plans as well. I try and be really flexible with them, so just shoot me a message if you want to know how they work, and we can work something out. And that goes with anything that's in my shop as well, so just shoot me a message. But yeah, that's it for me today, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and share. Helps my channel grow and the video to get a bit of a reach. But you can check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and also TikTok. I do a lot of lives, so check that out over there if you want to hop on and give some support. But I will catch you in the next one. Bye!